Hey guys! Welcome to part 3 of my art tip mini-series. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my top art tips related to achieving realism in your art, especially with color. I've always loved creating realistic artwork, and I love achieving realistic and detailed representations of my reference photos or observations. Over all my years of trying to draw realistically, these are my holy grail tips that have really helped me to achieve that illusion. For the rest of my top art tips, you can check out the playlist on my channel. I'll have the basic tips given in a chart at the end so you can screenshot it and keep it for reference. Let's get right into how you can achieve realism in your artwork. This category has 2 tips. This first one is really essential, and that is to use at least 3 values of a color on any given object. In real life, things you see have dimension and shadows as light reflects off the objects. If you want to draw something realistically, you need to create this same type of illusion. You can do this by using a variety of values. By using only one value, whatever you're trying to portray is going to look flat and not have any dimension, so you won't achieve that realistic effect. I suggest using at least 3 shades in order to give whatever object or subject matter you're drawing more realism. So you'll have a base color and then a lighter and darker shade to represent the highlights and shadows of the subject matter. Sometimes if there's very small components of an object, then I'll only do 2 colors, so you can play around with this and switch it up depending on your subject matter. Depending on the amount of realism you want to achieve, you could go up to 5 or even 7 shades to really enhance the realistic effect. And so you want to implement this rule into each component of your object. So here, as you can see, I've drawn tulips. On the left side, I've only used 1 color, and on the right side, I've used 3. So as you can see on this side, this one using 1 color, there is no separation of any of the petals or any of the leaves. So what you get is a very flat 2D shape that is not lifelike at all. However, on this side, I've used 3 values and blended them all together. And as you can see, the shadows in each of these components where I used 3 different shades gives the dimension of separate petals, separate leaves, and it makes it look a lot more realistic. So this is a great example that shows the difference between using 1 color and 3 colors. You can go even further and add lighter whites, darker pinks, and lighter greens or darker greens. And so for each color in a subject, you're going to choose 3 different shades. The next tip is kind of an extension of the previous one, and this is to focus on contrast. Contrast is key to really creating the illusion of a lifelike object. Bright highlights can give the illusion of real light shining on the subject, and shadows can portray the weight of an object and give it depth. Adding in these final darker shadows and white highlights can really pull your piece together. This is often the stage where the trust the process moment finally happens for me. And note that these are really just tiny add-ons. You don't want to do too much and create too stark of a contrast that draws the viewer's attention away from the rest of the piece, but instead very subtle additions. Implementing these dark darks and these light lights will create the contrast that will really bring your piece to the next level and achieve that realism you're looking for. So as you can see on this sphere that I've drawn, I added a very dark shadow with a navy blue and a very light highlight with a white, and it just gives that extra contrast to make the ball look like it is sitting on a surface and that the light is really shining on it, and creates a very realistic 3D effect. And so these tips can be used when working with any medium, so watercolor, gouache, graphite, charcoal, acrylic, etc. I'll give you some examples here. So as you can see here, these are some realistic orchids that I drew, and you can see the contrast of the dark blue and the light blue and how I use different shades here. Dark blue, light blue, and then almost white, and the amount of contrast between this dark and this light. And same with the pink there. Here is an example with graphite. You can see all the different values and shades and the deep contrast in the pupil and the lash line. Here's another example of graphite, and you can see all of the different value ranges that really help create the realistic look. And same with this drawing here. See these dark shadows and these light values. Here's another example with pencil. You can see the range of values that I used in each of these portraits. Here's an example with charcoal. You can get really deep values, which I think is amazing for creating realistic artwork. As you can see, especially this face I drew here, there's this very dark in her hair and the shadow of the eye. And then you can get some really nice light values to create some very subtle shadows. Here's a watercolor example. I used light green, medium green, dark greens, and in the trunk there as well, a light wash of brown, a medium wash of brown, and a dark wash of brown. This all helped create dimension in the scene. This is a gouache painting. You can see in the skin tones that I did a light, a medium, and a dark for shadows, and same in the bathing suit. There's the base blue, that medium blue, and that dark navy blue for the extra contrast. Another couple of examples. These realistic water droplets, you can really see that dark contrasting shadow there and that really bright highlight, and then the range of values. And here with these oranges, there's the light oranges, the mid-tone oranges, and the shadow oranges. Same with the leaves and the shadows. These Doc Martens have the bright white highlight, these dark black shadows, and the range of mid-tones. Same with the insoles of the yellow. These flowers, the leaves, I used a light green, a medium green, a dark green, a few more mid-tones. Same with these tulip buds. You can see that darker outline with gray I did to really define them. And same with the vase. And in this quick study I did with watercolors, you can see in each of these colors, I tried to use at least a couple of values. So there's a light green, a mid-tone green, and a dark green, light blue, dark blue, light purple, darker purple. The range of values and the contrast really helped to make the study drawings look a little more realistic. Here in the deer, you can see in the grass, there's multiple shades of green. And in these leaves of the tree, there's multiple tones. And with this strawberry, I've used a mid-tone red and then a darker red and then a brown for the shadows. And same with the leaves. I used a few different values. So yeah, I just wanted to show you a bunch of examples of how I use these tips in my artwork every day, just to give you an idea of how they're used in each medium and how often I use them as well. As you can see, these tips are ones that I incorporate into pretty much every art piece I make, and they really help me out in achieving that realism. So these are my holy grail tips for achieving realism in your artwork. I'm really happy that I got to share these tips with you guys. I hope you can try them out and that you find them useful. Thank you so much for watching. In the next part of the mini-series, I'll be discussing my tips for sources of inspiration that I use for my artwork. I'll see you in the next video. Happy creating!